if your goal is to expand in terms of multiple clinics, you have to be okay not being in control of everything.
Erin, welcome to my show.
A lot of folks, when they start to get into owning their own clinic, they see themselves as a service provider who just owns the business. That's not true. The question I ask most of my clients is, there is so much possibility for you. You don't have to match what you see on Instagram. It's okay to go at your own pace. I always say niche down. Become expert and known for one particular thing before you start doing all the things.
Absolutely.
We have very savvy customers now, right? They are looking for more than just, a couple pokes on their face. They really want to feel pampered, taken care of, seen, heard, and understood.
My opinion is you are the bottleneck. You have to be the one who values your time, who's aware of your asset, which is your time, your working time.
Tell me how many times you actually let yourself down.
Yeah.
It's almost none. And so why do you think now you would let yourself down? You're not going to fail. You will figure it out.
If you are an aesthetic injector, a nurse, a doctor, a dentist, or clinic owner, please sit back and relax. But remember, like every treatment, this podcast comes with a risk. You may end up becoming very successful.
Welcome, Erin. Welcome to my show. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited to chat with you. I've been watching your podcast, so lots of great information.
Me too. It's a big honor to have you on my show. Really cool. Erin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. The long and short of it is I've been working in the spa industry since high school. I took a reception job, and that's when I kind of fell in love with it and went to aesthetic school after high school. And actually, my main goal was to try and get the equivalent of a business degree or an MBA, but by working my way through, because I loved aesthetics, but I loved the business part. And so I got into medical aesthetics and lights and lasers in the early 2000s when it was coming up, and worked in MedSpas for a while. And then after that, transitioned after I left Canada in 2012. I moved to Bermuda and I spent some time there. And that's when I moved into luxury hotels and hospitality and was a luxury spa director there. And with that company, Rosewood Hotel Group, I was seconded on a few different missions to help turn around some spas. That's what I started to get known for, was recovering profitability and rebuilding teams. And it took me into Asia. I worked in Thailand and Beijing and Hong Kong. And in 2020, I left that role and came back to Canada and started and launched my own coaching business, which is really focused on teaching spas and medical spa owners how to run the business part, really looking into their financials, and really feeling like a CEO rather than a service provider who owns a business. I just felt there was a skill set kind of missing for a lot of us, right? Myself included. For many years, it was like, I don't want to know numbers. I don't know anything about numbers. Math is not my thing. But over the years, you have to find a very simplified way to figure out what numbers you need to know. And so I launched the Spa Business Coach Inc. back in 2021. So it's been a couple of years, and here we are.
Cool. Amazing. So what numbers do we need to know?
All of them. All of them. I mean, there are some basic ones that I recommend people are tracking every single day. So I try to make it easy and put a spreadsheet together. Now, I know spreadsheets are a bit old school, considering everybody's using great software. But one thing I notice is you're not really getting all of the metrics you need in a dashboard on your software. Mm-hmm. So I have a daily tracker I share with my clients. And really, we want to be looking at your average spend, how many clients you're seeing, how many treatments you're doing, the revenue that you took in for the day, and any turnaway business. A lot of people don't track turnaway business or lost business, let's say. And so those are the 5 metrics that every single day, if you can get into a routine of tracking them. So obviously I'm someone who's like, set yourself up for success. I have a daily tracker. All you have to do is plug those in. Typically with the softwares that are out there, you have to pull a couple different reports to get those answers. but I've set it up so you can have a whole month's worth in one template so that you can check it every day. So that if you're the owner, I'm probably like yourself, right? You might not be closing your location every day, but creating that end of day SOP where this is our standard operating procedure around how we close, including numbers that we report back to management, just so that on a management side, we can see how was flow of business today. Are we meeting, exceeding, or falling short? And that gives you some more insights in real time so that you can take action within that next 24 hours or before that next business day or by the end of the week. Because some people wait until the end of the month and then they look at their profit and loss statement and see, oh, shoot, maybe we should have done this or maybe we should have done that. But if you're checking more regularly, you can really take action and make a shift in real time.
No, I love that. I think you really have to understand the numbers and that gives you a good feeling of your business. But you, Erin, you probably see a lot of spas and meet a lot of injectors. What's the common problem or mistake or insecurity they have on numbers or, especially on business numbers?
The number one thing I hear is, I'm not a business person. And rightfully so, right? You went into nursing or you became a doctor, or even for estheticians who own a skin clinic, there is typically no business course inside of that. So there's no shame in not knowing. You don't know what you don't know. And I think a lot of folks, when they start to get into owning their own clinic, they see themselves as a service provider who just owns the business. So it's like, yes, I own it, but I'm really here to just inject, or I'm here to serve the patient or the client, which is a great foundational why of what you're doing. However, we have to face reality, which is you now are a business owner, and it will become a hobby and an expensive one if you don't start leaning into some of those numbers. And don't get it wrong, you don't actually need to know how to do math because, Excel does that for you. But it's just knowing what numbers are important, because I truly believe that the numbers tell you where your focus should go inside of your business. And the beauty about numbers is they don't have thoughts or opinions or feelings. They're just telling you what is, and it allows you to make decisions based on what's truly going on based on revenue or numbers and metrics inside.
Great. Why just thinking of the last event I had in Miami, and many nurses came to me and asked, when is the right time to shift from being employed to my own business, and what type of skill set do I need? What do you think on that?
I've had quite a few clients. Actually, most of the clients that I work with are nurse injectors or physicians who have their own injectables clinic. And obviously, you've probably seen this, a huge shift in leaving traditional medicine and traditional healthcare, going into the fun stuff and stuff that truly you can see an instant result for that patient or that client. And so there's also an element of artistry and creativity. So I think there's a lot of people gravitating toward it. However, I think the thing that keeps people stuck is the mindset around being such a structured employee with a salary and a schedule, and really knowing definitively this is what my week is going to look like. And the comfort zone, right? You get into a comfort zone. So it's a lot of mindset. I think the thing that they need to focus in on is what makes me happy. But I do believe there's a lot of conditioning out there that don't necessarily allow us to feel comfortable that if we decide I want to follow the thing that makes me happy, or I want to follow a dream, that it will actually be lucrative. So I think it's the thing that holds them back is the idea around, I have a salary, I have benefits, but what about my kids and what about all of these things? And actually, when you start to do the math of how often do you use that, how much are you actually paying? And as an example, I have several clients that were kind of part-time trying to kick off their injectables business, but we're still doing shifts in the ER or inside the hospital. And we got to a point where her business was actually making double what she was earning in salary. So she had a lot of profitability there. And eventually we got her to like as an example, $8,000 a month inside of her injectables business up to $30,000. And she was still holding on to shifts in the hospital because it was such an ingrained mentality that this is what safety looks like. And when I showed her, here's the chunk of money you can put aside, and that's actually insurance for the entire year, not 1 month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And showing them, what to look at so that they can learn how to create their own sense of security, but also helping shift their mindset around, later on in life, how are you going to feel looking back? Are you going to feel like, wow, I really wish I would have taken that chance? So I think it's a fine balance, but when are you ready to do that? I think when you realize that status quo, your regular lifestyle, is no longer serving you in the way that you live inside your mind. If in your mind you're constantly dreaming about that next thing, or you want to be doing something different, you're really not even present for the job that you're doing. So you might as well take that chance on yourself. And the question I ask most of my clients is, tell me how many times you actually let yourself down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's almost none.
Yeah.
And so why do you think now you would let yourself down? You're not going to fail. You will figure it out. And also, I think sometimes they get connected to, I spent so much money getting my education that I really should be leaning into that, right? We've heard it about people who go to law school and it's like, I should be doing law because I spent so much money. But the reality is you have to recognize sometimes it just serves a purpose, and it's for a season or two that it's going to serve a purpose to help you discover what else is there for you.
Yeah, I think that's because we sometimes just live the narrative of other people, right?
Yeah.
And especially we medical professionals, I wouldn't say we brainwashed, but if you come from the traditional healthcare industry, it's going into aesthetics is always something like, it's a little bit,
fluffy.
Fluffy. You have done all the trainings. You're a doctor. You should help people. You shouldn't go into business. You shouldn't do silly aesthetics or whatever they say. So I think that's a problem for many. They can't really let this old thing drop and step into a new thing. So what I do often on these inner circle events or Lips and Biz in Miami, I do some purpose exercises to really think, what is my purpose? What do I want to do? What is my goal in business? But what is my goal as well in private life, right? Because that has to be a match. And what makes me happy in the end, success can be anything, right? Success is waking up as a happy, fulfilled, and healthy person in the morning, right? So
totally. It could look like for me, I walk my dog 3 times a day. How many people can say they actually have time in their schedule to do that? But I think you're right. It's reconciling somewhat a little bit of an ego as well around like, well, I'm a medical professional and all of this fluff and beauty, it's not real. But when you're actually inside the industry, and for myself for many years as an esthetician and a laser tech, you're able to see transformative experiences for your clients. I've had clients that I recall sitting inside of a consultation to talk about laser hair removal on their face because they just felt like they couldn't go in public, and they were so... And after, our several treatments together, they were like, I have so much more confidence, and everybody's noticing I look different, but they don't really know why, and I love it. And so it's a little bit of a different kind of transformative service that we're doing in the way that you truly are able to change lives. And I'm sure this happens for you, right? Where you have those clients that walk out and say, Dr. Felix, because of you, I can show up in the world as the person I saw in my mind. And that's impactful.
I think that's one of the 2 most important things doing your own business, having these really transformative changes and these deeply satisfied and happy patients. And the other thing is being independent. And I think that's huge value. Erin, let me ask you, assume I'm a nurse and I want to take these steps into my own business. What are the first things I should do? Would you do a SWOT analysis, or would you check on financials? Where do I get the money? What is the preparation I have to do before I start doing my own business?
I love that you said the SWOT analysis. So many people skip this part, or they're not aware that they should be doing it. And you want to look at, where am I positioned in a market, in a geographical location, and look around, what is happening in this market? Who are the players? Where do I see myself positioned? Am I more like this person? Am I more like that person? And not to copy, but to see where are the gaps? Where are the opportunities? If you look into a market and you're doing your SWOT analysis and you see everybody is priced the same, everybody is offering the same thing, everybody is giving a mediocre service, this is a big opportunity for you to give a different type of service, a different kind of experience, maybe shift your menu or niche down. I always say niche down. Become expert and known for one particular thing before you start doing all the things. So certainly a SWOT analysis, absolutely do that first. I think looking at what will it cost me to get up and running. So sometimes that means, yes, you do have to raise money or you do have to get loans, but you want to look at what does it cost to outfit a clinic? Start creating a budget and doing some kind of quotes with vendors that sell you the table and sell you the chairs and sell you the equipment and sell you the supplies. And then you've got all of your professional product. I think looking at some of these things, and not that you have to get it perfect, but having a good understanding. I think after you have that, you really need to, or maybe simultaneously, you have to really have a clear vision. Why am I doing this? Right? Because as I'm sure you saw as well over the last few years, we saw many people just jumping ship from regular medicine to aesthetics because of the perceived quick money. But as you know, margins aren't the best in our industry. You truly have to be strict. You have to be mindful. You have to be business savvy in order to take advantage of those margins. So I think you really have to dig into the costing of it, start getting a spreadsheet put together, get several quotes. Don't just go with the first person that says, hey, I'll give you a deal.
Yeah.
I come from like a corporate background where you always present several quotes. So SWOT analysis, get a somewhat budget together. And even if it means all I have is $10,000 to start, well, work with that. It's not like you have to have a certain amount, because where you start is not where you finish. And there's a meme that I share with all of my clients of, that meme on Instagram, I'm sure you've seen it, where it shows where Apple started, where Amazon started, where Microsoft started. Like these things are important to remember, that what we see today is not where they started, and there is so much possibility for you. You don't have to match what you see on Instagram. It's okay to go at your own pace.
Absolutely. Now, that's what I recommend. You can start very small with very low infrastructure costs. You don't need devices in the beginning. Don't buy expensive lasers. You even don't need employees. You can start off your own, and then you just need a very, very small budget to start with. Quickly, let's explain SWOT analysis.
Yeah, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. Typically, so the verbiage I use around is called your comp set, your competitive set. And I actually have a spreadsheet inside of my program that I give to my clients, because really what I want them to be looking at are those things, right? Is in one sheet, let's look at who are your top competitors or perceived competitors. And I actually get them to call, or if they have a recognizable voice, maybe you get a friend to call, because also what you see in, at face value online or on a website might not be the experience when you call. They might not actually be that great over the phone. Maybe their customer service isn't wonderful. So you want to actually dig in a real way, not just do a little surface research on websites and Instagram. Actually call, try and book an appointment, go in and mystery shop, see what the experience is. Because for me, when we look at comp set, the thing I like to focus on is the holistic experience from start to finish. What was the experience? And did you find the value matched what their price point was? Because those things, I think in the service industry, which is what we are, it's very important that there is a lot of perceived value. And especially if you want to be at a higher price point, which is totally fine. I come from the luxury sector. You have to understand value. And if you only see it as they do neuromodulators, so I'm doing neuromodulators, so we have to be identical, that's not true. You can charge more based on the perceived value that you have, all the way from the patient or client walking in the door, right? Everything from when they cross that threshold all the way to when they're leaving and exiting. So there's certain touch points that I go through with clients where it's like you have to think this through, because we have very savvy customers now, right? They are looking for more than just, a couple pokes on their face. They really want to feel pampered, taken care of, seen, heard, and understood. And that's what's going to keep them coming back.
You have to create an experience. Invest in memories. That's one of my favorite claims. But let's quickly jump back into the numbers. You had these 4 or 5 key numbers you were recommending. Could you share with us what should be a healthy revenue? What is a healthy level of costs, or what is a margin I can expect? Could we run these numbers concretely and create some kind of average small business in our minds?
Yeah, so I do an exercise with all my clients called treatment costing. So there's 2 things that I always do when we first work together and we dig in. Treatment costing. So what this looks like, and a lot of folks get it wrong, is they look at, okay, it costs me X amount to purchase a neuromodulator or a vial of neuromodulator. So they put that as the cost, and then they kind of just minus retail price minus the cost equals my profitability. But that's absolutely untrue, right? There are supplies, there's labor, you might have amenities or part of the guest experience. You want to factor that in. Maybe you have a medical director. There's a lot of other fees that go into one specific treatment. So we iron it all out so that you understand per treatment type and time what the business earns per treatment. So whether you're 30 minutes or 60 minutes, 45 minutes, and the type of treatment. So when we look at, and this is just because I'm not necessarily aware of the exact price point at wholesale, what it is for you, but here in Canada or even in the US, if you're doing, let's say, neuromodulators, if you are not your medical director, you could be looking at a profit margin per treatment, which is usually about a 30-minute treatment for, a neuromodulator, anywhere from 30% or 28 to 30% up to 35, 37%. It's not that big of a margin. And also that depends on the price point. Are you $8 a unit? Are you $10 a unit? Are you pricing it per area? These are things that you want to consider so that on the back end, it makes sense of what the business makes after we've paid all of the people to do the service. So I think with neuromodulator, if you are your medical director, you can see upwards profitability per treatment anywhere from 45 up to 55%. And again, it does depend. I'm talking about more North American numbers. I'm assuming price points are similar and the same in terms of wholesale versus retail. If we're looking at some kind of dermal filler, it's actually a little bit less. This one's a bit less, right? We're looking maybe between that 25 to 35. And again, we want to look at medical director fee and things like that. So I'm not factoring overhead or anything like that. It's really just what it takes to serve that particular client. And then what we want to look at is, as an example, if you're offering a plethora of treatments, let's say you also include microneedling or PRP, we want to look at the average spend. If the average person coming in for neuromodulator drops, let's say, $500 with you in 30 minutes, but a PRP takes your practice, let's say, 60 minutes to do, but they're only paying $300, you can see there will be a big difference in terms of maybe what you want to market, when you want to market it, and or the type of service provider so that you can control labor. So you can see, like, when you look at the back end of the numbers, they're not necessarily difficult, but it's just making sure that we've accounted for all of the things.
What is the in terms of finances, the biggest challenges within the first few years? Is it employees is quite expensive? That's, from my point of view, the most expensive part. So take on too early, too many employees, and what kind of employees you're taking on. I started as a single derm and took on injectors first or dermatologists before I hired admin people, because I wanted to have people who are financially productive in this sense. What about lasers and devices? I always was very careful with them until we had a certain amount of employees and providers who could use them. What is your advice within the first years? What is the critical factors here?
So critical factors when you're looking to expand. Obviously, I think if you start out as a solopreneur, you have to hit a certain volume before you really need assistance. And that volume looks like in what we would call utilization, right? Which means hours available versus hours booked. So if you're not tracking that, you want to track that and to understand what your utilization is. At about 65 to 70%, if you're a solopreneur, you need help. Because in reality, you're only ever going to do as good as 80 to 90% because you need breaks and there's turnover time for the room and things like that. So when you hit that point, you want to be looking for help. Now, depending what help you need, where are the things inside of your business that are slowing you down? Are you spending a lot of time answering DMs, scheduling clients, booking things in, doing admin? It might mean that you need admin help before you need another revenue generator, and or simultaneously. Now, you mentioned that you had probably a heavy labor rate because you were also employing folks who were demanding a higher salary or a higher compensation. So I think there are a few different compensation models that you can do. My favorite is always a combination, and I don't know that a derm or another physician would agree to it. However,
I would. Fixed salary and bonus or...
Yes.
Yeah,
so my
commission.
favorite is a hourly rate that is not a livable rate. So we're just below what might be livable so that the top up is the commission that they make on the services delivered. So that's my favorite go-to because it gives you enough to feel some sense of security. And then as you're building your clientele, you will see that the commission portion of it grows and you don't care so much about the hourly. But I think when you're starting out, there are things that I do with clients that might be the first 90 days, they're strictly hourly or a fixed number while they're building their client, but it's very clear in the contract that they will be switching to straight commission or a low hourly with a better commission rate and things like that. Now, what I also feel is super important is if you're in that hiring process is present those numbers and what is possible for that new hire, because a lot of the new hires won't be able to do that math for you. So it's important that you understand what an average week would look like and you do that math so that they have an indication. And typically what I would do is also I break it down in comparison to this is what it looks like in terms of the hourly plus the commission, but that would work out to being a salary around this amount. So even though you're not going to be salary, but it gives them an indication, because I think the hard part is when you start breaking down a compensation model that they might not be familiar with, they don't know how to register. So is that $5K a month? Is that $4K a month? What am I actually earning? So I think it's important to really break it down for them and be transparent to let them know my goal is for you to make the most you possibly can and renegotiate. If you have a star performer who is booked out, there are many shifts that you can make. Maybe it means you give them more commission, right? Because you already know they're doing high volumes so the business can afford it. Or maybe it's that, because they're a star performer, they can have a different type of bonus or compensation model or certain days. So I think that there's always room to negotiate if somebody is truly, doing well. It's important to, because one of my things also is performance reviews, which people don't do enough of, but doing the performance review to let them know, listen, I truly value what you bring here and you are a great contributor and I want to reward you because if you're doing well, the business will do well.
Amazing. Erin, you probably touched on this already, but when is the right point to take on a new employee or a new injector? You said once you booked out as a solopreneur, never before. Same answer to opening a new clinic. That was a question I was gotten just recently. When should I open a second clinic? I always recommend fill up your first clinic first and then take this. Would you agree on that?
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. You want, and not just fill it up, because as you're probably aware, right, when even if you have a volume of business, you also want to make sure that your practices, your systems, your procedures, your team, everybody is singing the same song, that you have quality controlled experiences, that is a repeatable process, that everyone who comes in, they know what they're going to get, and that's why they are a repeat client. And on the back end, you want to make sure also you have an employee handbook, you have your SOPs, you have your protocols, so that as you train, because you're a single person, meaning you can't be in both clinics at once. So how do we replicate that? Well, you need to also have the resources and tools to train a new team where you might not be 100% present. But also, if you are 100% present in the new location, you have to trust that the old location is running like a well-oiled machine, which is more than just having the volume. So we've solved the revenue problem. Check, we're okay there. But we also need to make sure that the team is working cohesively. Everybody knows what they should be doing, that we're really into a good groove and everybody is operating to a brand standard that we all have agreed upon.
So that means your first clinic is some kind of prototype where you set all the protocols and KPIs or whatever, and then you're ready to scale. That's an interesting question. What do you have to prepare before you scale? And I think you mentioned it already. Most of it, I would say, two topics I think super important is leadership structure and KPIs. Or do you see another model, how to control several clinics? Because it's a huge difference, right? If you have a small clinic and have like 5 employees, you can handle them just in a family style, have lunch together, discuss things. But once you have 100, 150 people and like 10 clinics, it's a different game. How do you solve this game? How do you get there?
Org structure. You have to look at the organization. And this is where if your goal is to expand in terms of multiple clinics, you have to be okay not being in control of everything. You have to set different levels of supervision and different levels of management and things like that, so that each clinic has their direct lines of communication for problem solving, for leadership, for guidance and direction. Now, if you're the CEO, you always want to think that top down. So the CEO typically will have, several managers, that is maybe a manager of different locations, but then those managers need supervisors, and those supervisors, depending how many different departments, you then might need team leads. So I think it's important to look at the org structure, but overall, it's truly important that I kind of look at this process like franchising. And when you look at why people buy franchises, it's because it's like a turnkey business, meaning they already understand the prototype of what it has to look like. They've gotten the manual, they have the protocols. So I use something like, the fast food chain Subway.
Of course. Sandwiches.
Right? The sandwiches. I know it's a very simple one, but the thing is, they have their protocol. This is how you make a, Italian meatball sub. It doesn't matter what country you're in. The steps are the exact same. And the team knows that I have to follow these steps because I want that outcome, which is a happy client who is happy to come back and order again. And so I think when you look at your processes, your procedures, and the way that you manage, those things need to be 100% in place. Now, you mentioned leadership. Leadership is absolutely important because you can have all of those things, but if you have poor leadership, it will not work. And communication, I think too many of us in our business, we don't value team meetings enough. I did 2 daily briefings with my teams, especially in Hong Kong. I had a team of 70. So I did the morning shift, the afternoon shift. What do we talk about? Well, we're talking about what are we tackling today? Who is in? Who are our VIPs? Where might we have an opportunity to mess up, right? Who is going to pinch hit for each other? How is today going to go? And let's make a game plan at the beginning of the day. We have weekly meetings to review. How did this week go? What guest complaints did we have, or what were some challenges that we can tackle and get better at for next week? And then, of course, end of month meeting where we're really reviewing financials. We're setting our new goals so everybody understands what their contribution is to that larger goal. So I think also when you're looking at scaling, the communication gets more and more and more and more, not less.
Absolutely. The interpersonal skills are often much more important. But Erin, let's assume there's a client calling you and you get there and meet her or him, and they have big plans. They want to scale, they want to grow big, and you immediately feel they don't have the skill set, not the right mindset, not the right interpersonal skills maybe. What is needed to really go big, and how to overcome maybe your imposter syndrome, which many have?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we all have it to a certain degree. And of course, more so for those folks who are just starting out as business owners. So you might be a very seasoned injector, but as a business owner, you're like, I really don't know what I'm doing. That's where it comes from. But thankfully, we can remedy that. But I would say, the people who come in with guns blazing, like, I want to, conquer the world, I have to remind them that you only can do it one step at a time. You don't conquer Mount Everest by just going up the rope. You literally need to map out, okay, what step am I taking? And I only need to focus on what is the next right step, because if I keep doing that, I will get there. And so sometimes you have to kind of bring them down to reality to let them know what happens if you try and go too fast is you end up scaling chaos. So you have more chaos, and that's eventually going to cause you to want to leave altogether, or your business will crash. Personally, I've seen it over and over again where they got too big too soon and then realized, I didn't do all of these things, and then employees leave, and then the brand is tainted, and it goes too quickly. I think don't be in a hurry.
Absolutely.
If it's in your mind, and I have a belief system that if you've had a dream, if it's come into your mind and you can visualize that this is where I want to go, it already belongs to you. It's already in your reality somewhere. I mean, I don't dream of flying an airplane because that dream doesn't belong to me, right? So I don't worry about if I'm ever going to do that. But in your mind, if you have a vision of where you want to go, you will get there, but you want to do it one right step at a time. So I think you can't be in too much of a hurry. And don't, try to operate with a bit of blinders on. I know it's so difficult today because there's social media and everybody just looks like they're making $1 million out the chute, but it's really not true. And
I agree so much on this. Absolutely.
It derails so many people because they spend too much time scrolling going, oh, she has what I don't have. They have what I don't have. They're bigger than me. And it's just, you don't really know how long it took them to get there. You're only seeing what happened today. Like, again, I use Apple as an example because everyone's like, wow, look at that new building that they built. And like, Apple started in 1970, right? Like, it's been a minute. It took them a while to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But what I often see, besides growing fast, they open up like 4 clinics and travel them by themselves, right? They are the only, and that doesn't make sense at all. You have to pay rent 4 times. You have to pay all the. So, what do you think of being? So, my opinion is you are the bottleneck. You have to be the one who values your time, who's aware of your asset, which is your time, your working time. Would you recommend to travel as an injector from spot to spot?
I've had actually a couple clients do this at the very beginning. I think you can make it work if your goal is eventually to have satellite clinics here and there so that you've sort of built up a clientele. I think it's helpful if you are not carrying any rent, but you want to, broaden your horizons when it comes to where your clients are based. But I think if you want to scale what you do, you have to focus in on one.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think your time is your most valuable asset. It's an unrenewable resource. And if you truly want to be in several markets, then the more important thing is you need to find who is your number 2.
Yeah.
And your number 2 has to learn, they have to be Dr. Felix 2.0. They have to know exactly how you do it, why clients come back to you, all of the things that you do. And so some people see that as an expense. They're like, well, I'm basically just paying them to watch me. And you're like, yes, that is the point. They have to learn everything that you know so that when you have to transition clients over, that client truly trusts that that person is going to perform exactly as you. And this is how you can do it as a single person. I think when you're in a clinic, obviously, this is where if you want to expand the offering, you now also need to look into more systems. those processes and procedures and things like that. But if you're a traveling injector, it's actually just more work for you. And also when you, like, let's go back to the numbers. What's the time on travel? How much did you spend on gas? What did you spend on, maybe staying in a hotel? All of these things. But more importantly, what was the cost of being away from your family?
Absolutely.
Your friends?
Agree. Yes.
And is it worth it at the end of the day? And if you truly knew the numbers, you would already agree, don't do that, right? Me personally, I don't think it's worth it in dollar value, right? Because if you're traveling around, the thing is, it also doesn't give you an opportunity to create a very stable following because you're not as you're not as consistently present in those places.
Yeah, the follow-ups and complications or whatever. No, I agree on that. You could do it maybe in the beginning. That's true, to gain your foundation, but
gain
long-term
experience.
Coming back to money and investing or starting your first clinic, and let's assume you can't do it cheap. You need a certain amount, or you take the next steps and want to grow. Where do you get money? Would you take on an investor? Would you go to a bank? Should they call you? Do you have any help to offer? What is the steps you should take if you need money or an investment in your business?
Yeah, there's a few different things. A lot of my clients, they're more savvy than me. They are looking into every single small business grant they can get. So it does require time and research. And some of those grants is just you'll get money for mentorship. You'll get money to get business consultants to help you create all of that. I think look into what let's say programs are set up for you in your state or your province or the region where you're operating. Look into that if really you want to stay away from banks. But many banks will be open to doing small business loans. And for me personally, I really don't think that it's worth it to take, $100,000, $200,000 and, build your Taj Mahal type clinic because you don't actually know if you have enough clients to fill it. I personally start small. Rent a room. There's nothing wrong with renting a room.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with partnering up with someone or cross-promoting in a different business, right? Maybe it's more of a skincare business where you can show up and work inside that business a couple days a week. Slowly build your clientele.
Isn't there options to in bigger cities to have these co-working spaces for doctors?
Yes. So actually, one trend
or
that's really
injectors.
Yeah, there's a trend that's happening right now, and I don't know if it's so much in America, but it's definitely happening in Canada, where there are these facilities where you can rent like a suite, and it's the entire building is all like services. So you would rent a beauty suite where there is a reception desk at the entrance of the building, and they will tell you which suite number is your injector, which suite number is the lash lady, or which suite number is the chiropractor. And that's a really great way to start out. I always say dip your toe in the water before you jump right in. You might not even like it.
I agree. Absolutely. That's what I said in the beginning. Start small and then
always
take it. Yeah. Cool. Erin, I have two more questions left. One is, what do you think on devices? When is the right time to take on devices? What kind of devices? And how can I make them profitable? How can you calculate that one?
So I have lots to say about devices because I think one of two things happen. You take on a device too soon, and now all your mindset goes to scarcity around how am I paying for that contract. If you're not in a position where you're creating enough profitability, do not do it. You're not ready. And the reason why I say that is because if you are in a practice where the primary focus of your practice is injectables, my guess is that your heart is in doing injectables. And whenever I've seen any clinic take on an energy device or some kind of light or laser machine, you need to have someone who will champion that machine. And typically it is not the injector. Unless all of a sudden you decide, I want to abandon injectables and I really love the outcomes that I get here, then that's okay. But like I said at the beginning, I think it's you niche down, you get really good at and get a good client base that trusts the outcomes that you get for your clients And then as you start to fill your schedule and you see, you know what, you've been coming to me for injectables for a year or so. I'm actually going to be bringing on this device. We've been working at your skin at a deeper level. Now let's start working outside in. And that's what these devices are going to do. And then you can offer something more holistic. But I think if you don't have a solid and consistent revenue, where what I mean by that is you're actually making profit, it will become an extra burden where you're thinking, okay, do I market this? Do I market that? And you get a little bit confused. If you want to bring one on and you as the injector, you're busy, you're stable, but you really want to give that holistic experience, hire someone to run that machine. It should not be you, because now whatever you were focused on 100% to build the clients that you now have to recognize, I need to split. Now I only have some time for this, and the rest of my time has to go to the energy device.
My last question, Erin, and that's a question I ask everyone at the end of this episode. What is the industry look like, or does the industry look like in 20 or 40 or 50 years? What do you think will our beauty industry look like?
Well, my number one concern is I hope that specifically injectors, because I feel like you have the opportunity to create a face, if you know what I mean. So I hope that injectors still look forward to injecting with integrity and making people look the best that they can look with their natural features. I'm seeing a lot less of the caricature type of injecting and things like that, and maybe that's just the injectors I work with. But I think that it's important to make people look like themselves and really teach the value of aging slowly or gracefully, but looking like yourself, and it's okay to age, and there are little tweaks that you can do. I think in the future, our industry really serves a larger purpose. I think there's a lot of mental health and well-being and lifestyle that could be integrated into what we do as service providers. I'm sure you've come across this, Dr. Felix, where you know that there's an underlying issue of why that client might be coming to see you, and there's only so much that we can do, but you can feel it in your heart that, geez, I wish we had an hour to just sit down and talk it through. You know, and I think if we could marry the technical aspects of it and the aesthetics of it with mindset, with mental health, with truly understanding what are the best practices for a holistic wellness. I think if we could stop being so segmented where it's, oh, you do wellness, or you do mental health, or you do injectables, or you do this, if we could come together more as holistic practitioners to really look at an individual and say, how are we going to transform your entire being and how you show up as a person, as opposed to just fixing the surface problems, because we know that the surface problems always come from somewhere deeper.
So that's why our claim is we make people feel better about themselves.
I love that.
That's it.
I love that.
Yeah, and you're so right. It has to marry, and we have to integrate other aspects of who we are as people. And
yeah,
very, very, very nicely said. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.